This week on the Squatchers Lounge podcast, a Reverend Jeff exclusive. And we're not talking about campfire stories. This week, we're talking about the fact that nobody listens to the Reverend Jeff when he's talking about Sasquatch in Florida. But for some reason, y'all listen to him on this show. So one way or another, we're going to help a Squatcher out and get somebody up on some action. Tonight, or thereabouts. And now I'm going to take it over to the man who, if you talk to him real nice in the chat room, will tell you the story. The Reverend Jeff Kelly.
Woo, that's right. Welcome, everybody, to the Squatchers Lounge podcast. And we are the hosts of this mess. I am the Reverend Jeff. Thank you very much for being here. And over there is the Dr. David Batdorf, Esquire, accredited pseudoscientist. How you doing, buddy?
I'm still not sure how I managed to have enough time to have a law degree and a science degree at the same time. But hey, here I am.
And yeah, you know, the PhD goes right along with that bar association. You know, I've heard people have actually just studied for the bar and passed it. One of these days, I too will become an Esquire. But you know, as usual, the honorary titles just get handed out at the Squatchers Lounge podcast to just anybody. So that's right. We're talking about the Florida Bigfoot tonight. The Skunkape? No, not really. We're talking about the Florida Bigfoot. I don't know what those people are chasing down there in the south, but I'm pretty sure what's up there in the middle of the state, Central Florida and above, is good old Sam Squanch, and we are going to talk about it tonight. Hey, don't forget to go over to facebook.com and /Angels Dust Seasoning, and get your Angel's Dust sent to you. It's like $7 a shaker plus some shipping. It literally makes watermelon taste better. I don't know how that's possible, but it does. So I've actually gotten my sample in, and it is fantasticated. You guys should go out and get a bit of yours as well, because it's just pork. Oh, the devil's nectar with the crystallized honey in it is just, oh man, it's just I can't tell you. Anyhow, go get you some devil's nectar, some angel's nectar.
With names like that, it's gotta be PCP.
Gotta be PCP. No, actually, it's not. It is definitely seasonings. Hey, let's get out to it and get a little newsy for everybody, as we do this time every single week. This first story has really kind of piqued my interest. The government drones will shoot vaccinated M&Ms at prairie dogs and anything else that will eat them to save endangered ferrets that share the dog's burrows. How can we vaccinate endangered ferrets? A U.S. Fish and Game and Wildlife must have wondered during a meeting. Well, what if we shoot vaccine-laden M&Ms into the mouths of prairie dogs with drones? Another official must have replied in the least boring government meeting of all time. Well, that's a real plan. But that's how this crap actually, somebody had to suggest it. Somebody had to approve it. The vaccines will be targeted at the prairie dog population at the UL Bend National Wildlife Refuge in northeastern Montana. Black-footed ferrets, North America's only native ferret, are completely dependent upon prairie dogs, which are a type of burrowing rodent, for their food and their shelter. So they're going to put the vaccinated M&Ms into the prairie dogs, knowing that the ferrets are going to hunt them and eat them. Both black-footed ferrets and prairie dogs are susceptible to the sylvatic plague, a flea-borne disease.
Sylvanic plague.
Well, I had to leave the N out because it really wasn't there. Were introduced from ships arriving in California in the 1800s. While individual ferrets can be vaccinated by an injection, wildlife officials have found it difficult to protect prairie dogs over large areas. The full proposal is available online, and I didn't bother to reach it. But a drone flying at 20 miles per hour can definitely do it faster than a dude on foot. That's basically what the rest of the article goes on to say.
And who doesn't like M&Ms? So right. I'm just imagining like this, like Department of Fish and Game, like, okay, so we have to vaccinate the prairie dogs and we have to vaccinate all of them. And so we really need to make this, we need this proposal to be exciting. How are we going to kick this up? Drones
and M&Ms.
Shooting candy.
That's
and
right.
Rodents. Yeah, so that's happening.
There you have it. Another new use for drones this week.
Vaccinating prairie dogs.
That's right. Hey, the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife need your help. They say, have you seen the American badger? They need your help to monitor the badger populations in Washington, but they want you to remember one thing: keep your distance. Badgers are assholes. Now, I'm not kidding about that. You take a picture of a badger from a distance. Do not go get a selfie with these things. They got razor sharp claws and teeth that will gnaw your freaking hand off. These are not funny little pets to go up and try and and cuddle with.
I mean, it may be a fun YouTube video, but the honey badger is not the only badger to give zero fucks.
Okay? Yeah, no badgers give any fucks.
No badgers give fucks whatsoever, and the wolverine is like the apex badger of not fuck giving. Right?
Yeah, they'll eat your dog, they'll eat your parrot. They don't care what you're playing around with. Just take a picture from a distance and send it in to them. Say, yeah, hey, we saw a badger. Click from 200 yards away. That's the appropriate length to stay from these things.
Attention, squatchers. This is what you call citizen science. Now, they're not going to base any wide-ranging or so they're going to base wide-ranging correlative studies upon this data, but they're not going to do any specific behavioral sort of data off of this whatsoever. They're just trying to get a feel for where they're living, how widespread they are, and how many of them there possibly could be based on the actual the known components of badger life. So this is citizen science, and this is cool, and the state of Washington is getting better and better about asking for these sort of things.
And as the future goes on, they'll depend more upon the population because, daggone it, there's more of us than there are of them.
And finally, they're realizing that. So
that's right. Go. Oldest non-stone tools found outside of Africa weren't created by humans. They was created by monkeys. That's right. The nut hammer. That's what they call them. A capuchin.
That sounds painful.
They're at the Karaha National Park. Cracks open nuts with a stone tool. Only a handful of non-human primates actually use tools. But again, it goes back to how closely we are related to our lesser primate cousins. This is a cousin of ours. Like it or not, a New World monkey is still a cousin of Homo sapiens sapien. It's still down the line. And it's the fact that they can pick up a rock hammer and use it to break open nuts. And they're intelligent enough to look for the right kind of rock, hard enough to break the nut, shows that there's still a level of intelligence even in a little tiny brain.
But that tiny brain came from the same tiny brain that our big brain came from. In that
it just can't do calculus.
So if you're looking at the split from New World monkeys is at 30 million years ago, we're looking a long time ago. This was 45 to 60 million years ago that we split away from this guy, and he's still cracking nuts with a hammer and anvil. Pretty basic stuff. And so we find some, all the conspiracy theorists. Humans were more widespread and there was a mass genocide with the aliens and blah, blah, blah. No, it was the fucking Capuchins.
Yeah,
and I forget it was 180 generations. They found 180,000 or something like the 6 million year old instances of this behavior. It's pretty damn cool.
Yeah, did the aliens give the New World monkeys the ability to use tools too? Because that's always been the thing. We were all a bunch of crap-flinging monkeys in trees until the aliens showed up. But here we have little monkeys using tools, so they must have screwed with their DNA too, right?
Yeah, exactly. So when we were still trying to diverge from our last common ancestor with chimpanzee, these guys were breaking nuts open like it was nobody's business, and we still hadn't figured out how to do that, apparently.
Exactly. So there we go. Stone tools, definitely a primate thing. Ah, crap, not a human thing. That last one was about the Sasquatch bearing it all for ESPN. That's right. Our buddy, the Jack Link's beef jerky Sam Squanch is going to be butt naked nude in ESPN magazine. That's
Sasquatch
okay.
in repose.
I understand that Playboy doesn't have any naked ladies in it anymore, so one of these magazines has to.
But they many years ago they did have Marge Simpson, and that's actually the only issue of Playboy I own is the one with Marge Simpson in it.
With a naked Marge Simpson in it? Wow,
well, no, she wasn't really naked all the way. It was tastefully done.
Belgian Neanderthals were butchering their dead. That's right. It's now well accepted that ancient Neanderthals who thrived in Europe before the arrival of modern humans formed complex societies. From painting caves to producing jewelry, they were also thought to have performed rituals for their dead. Now archaeologists studying Neanderthal remains discovered in Belgium think they may have been practicing something a bit more gruesome. Yeah, they're preparing their dead, all right. They're preparing their dead for dinner. Bone fragments excavated over 100 years ago in the Coyet caves in central Belgium show evidence that the bodies of the dead were intentionally butchered. The scrapes and the cut marks on the 40,000-year-old bones were consistent with those seen on reindeer bones also found in the cave. So reindeer, Bob, whatever. Hey, pass me a bit of Bob.
Hey, so
reindeer or Bob? I don't know. Light meat, dark meat? I'm not quite sure how this works, but of course they would. Why wouldn't they?
Why wouldn't they? They were us in a lot of ways, and we did and still do.
Right.
In a lot of ways.
Cannibalism is a cultural taboo. It's not an animal taboo, because almost everything will eat a member of its own family if it's dying or dead.
Well, you think even 30 or 40 years ago, cannibals in New Guinea,
Borneo, or the subjungles of Sumatra.
Well, yeah, and talking about those sorts of uncontacted tribes, and then up to and including black metal bands in Sweden, whatever.
They were the cannibal pygmies forever. I mean, there were all these stories of cannibals in the jungles of South America and the Caribbean. Now that we know all those places 70 years later, the stories were probably bunked then.
But we present this as if it's some sort of shocking fact, and really, if we look at ourselves, if we look at chimpanzees who actually will eat the young of neighboring tribes and other things like that, like, who says that this person who was butchered was related? It wasn't like, oh, we laid Uncle Bob to rest and we're going to eat him because we're starving. That was
I think they were probably smarter not to eat diseased people.
That was the insinuation. Like, well, what if it was just the chieftain Grog needing to provide his a show of power, so he sacrificed Bob to the sun god. What if it was something very much like Mayan style? There's so many different cultural versions of this, that why is it just that, well, as they were dying out, yes, the timing works with that, but I'm pretty sure that they were dying out for we
don't even know if they were eating Bob. We just know that they were butchering him. They could have been feeding Bob to the dogs.
They might have been doing science, the first Stone Age science.
Science is popular back then.
Or they could have possibly, like the other scenario is they were very, very poorly, they had very, very poor nutrition, and they weren't making it, which is why they went extinct, and they were also eating Bob to make ends meet. But
can't live paycheck to paycheck without eating Bob. Let's have a little bit of Bob.
Exactly. Why does a fig-eating frugivore eat the face of the child next door like a chimpanzee? Well, it's just kind of the thing you do at the time. Everybody else is doing it. Everybody else is eating Bob. Why not?
Hey, Wilma, they cut my hours back at the rock plant. I think we're going to have to eat pebbles. Sorry, too soon? Maybe.
Yeah, but happening. Anyway, so we have to take a step back from our own cultural devices, look at some of our other analogs, and realize, that pretty much puts them right in there with us. That doesn't, Neanderthals were butchering their dead. It's supposed to be like a separatist, we're not like the Neanderthals. No, we're exactly like the Neanderthals.
Why would
more like the Neanderthals?
Very, very strange, this whole burying things in the dead, in the earth. Anyhow, another one from IFL Science. Marijuana contains alien DNA from outside of our solar system. NASA confirms. You know what this was? This was an experiment on social media, because all of you fools clicked on it, and then you read that it had nothing to do with marijuana, alien DNA, or NASA, and you probably closed it before you realized what it was. But literally, this is an experiment in who would click on the title just because it says something. It has a picture of a pot plant.
It says aliens and has cannabis on it. Of course I'm going to click on it.
Well, but unfortunately, it's got nothing to do with extraterrestrial stoners melding with Earth's plants. However, since you're now reading, and you almost certainly be interested in the research, looked into the clicking and sharing behaviors of social media users reading content or not, and then sharing it on social media. So basically, a bunch of people, millions of people, possibly billions, saw this title and went, oh, wow, freaking cool, and just hit share and never read it.
Yeah, it happens so much. I've done it. You've done it. We've all done it. You have to,
I've never eaten Uncle Bob though.
Yeah. Do you read back into the source text? Do you follow up on the study? Was it peer reviewed? Was nobody does that. We just click share and it's cool. I saw a great meme today, which was actually, and I was like, I was gonna share it as like, hashtag guilty. But it was, person who feels they are too old and have too many things to do to play Pokemon immediately rushes to Facebook to tell everybody so.
Nobody has time to play Pokemon because I'm too busy.
Nobody has time to play Pokemon because I'm a grown
person. I gotta
be
honest with you.
However,
I don't even know what the hell a Pokemon is. Okay.
However, I feel compelled that I need to log into Facebook and tell everybody
that I don't know what a Pokemon is. That's right. I did actually make a comment on somebody's post like, will somebody please, for the love of God, tell me what the freak of Pokemon is? I don't know. I have teenage kids. I still don't know what a Pokemon is.
Well,
you're doing some card game over there that I'm not interested in. Cool. Keep it over there.
The generation, it's coming back immediately to like I was of the Pokemon Pog generation, right? Like, it was like you got to collect them all, and now people are out there, and I'm sitting there at my place of work, and I have these vendors coming in, third parties that are like holding phones up, like hold still, you have a bat on your face. I'm like, well, that's apropos. Asshole.
Bat dwarf has a bat on his face. Jackass.
Yeah.
I'd like to be able to think that I wouldn't ever bother with this, but seriously, these people are getting raped and robbed and all kind of crazy crap. Look, I saw one today literally where the Holocaust Museum has asked people not to catch Pokemon inside the museum. It's a bit disrespectful.
Okay, so this is another one of those like fascinating social experiments that I'm watching this going like, holy shit, this is amazing. And how people like they go all in. And then I think back to like when I first got into the Sasquatch thing, and I was like totally convinced that finding Bigfoot was going to find Bigfoot or whatnot. Like those sort of things, like all in. Oh yeah. Yeah, so I really don't want to walk around with my phone up catching Pokemon all the time. I can only create so many.
I did hear something today though that Pokemon Go has done more for childhood obesity than the good school lunch program did.
Yes.
So it's probably true too.
There's a lot to this. Let's get some people outside. Let's get people walking around. Let's get people interacting like in the real
maybe
life.
Meeting new people. Hopefully you don't get into the van that says rare Pokemon here. Although I did see another article today, and we'll end it with this one. Literally, there was a violent child sex offender found on the courthouse grounds picking up Pokemon with kids. So there is that. There is the don't let your children go out of your sight kind of thing if they're not old enough to kick somebody in the crotch and run. So that just be smart, people. These are not the bad men are still out there. Pokemon is fun, but if you got little kids, go catch Pokemon with them.
This is really the first, and it's an interesting realm to go into, but it's the first breakthrough into virtual / reality. Like virtual reality, like put an Oculus on in your living room. It's totally different than holding your phone up in front of you walking down the waterfront, right?
Right.
If you're searching through old warehouses down in the waterfront area in your industrial district, you're probably going to run into some stuff you're not expecting to run into.
I don't care if there's a Pokemon down there or not. You don't need that one.
Yeah, this Pikachu is not worth that.
No.
But this is the first blending of virtual / reality in gaming that really has just spread like this. There's other options. So it's going to be interesting to follow this. And I
wasn't in the crack house either. I promise. Yeah. He isn't in there. He might look like he's in there, but he is not in the crack house.
But people can hide shit in there. They'd be like, hey, I got such and such. Like it's at least plus 72 HP coming to the poorhouse. People are leaving stuff in strip clubs or leaving stuff. Like it's fascinating to see how this all plays out. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm not against Pokemon.
We're lost on the Pokemon, and I still don't know what the hell it is. So
I've got time for Pokemon, but only as an observer because this is fascinating. And if I like anything for like the cultural anthropological aspects of it, or just there's something telling to this, and this Pokemon thing, I mark my word, will be an interesting thing to watch over the next year or so.
I totally agree. Wrapping up the news tonight, finally. Pocatello Man's Bigfoot hoax gets international attention. That's right. Apparently, after the YouTube video of the alleged Bigfoot encounter went viral last week, the film's producers announced it was all a hoax because we know that they didn't want anybody to waste their money actually getting synthetic hair examined. So basically it's gone viral. It's gone around the world now, and all we can say is thanks for confirming it. Moving right the hell along.
Yeah, thanks for making like how many people look like idiots, whatever. Yeah.
Please, people, let something real happen, and let it happen really freaking soon.
Look at the headline. Don't watch the video. Don't read the text. Don't look for peer-reviewed articles. Just share it and let it go.
That's right. Just share it out to the world like you read it and let it go. Hey, let's get a little bit of time now for a quasi theory from Dean Cooper, the We People.
Hashtag share it, Reddit.
And now, quasi theories from a quasi scientist with your host, Dean Cooper.
We see the wee folk, and they ain't that wee. Way back in high school, some friends and I went to hang out at a coffee house that was only open on Saturday nights. They always had one local folk singer or another performing. It was in the basement of a convent, which isn't really relevant. A few hours after we got there, one of us went out for a bit of fresh air. A few minutes later, he came rushing back in, all oddly excited and perturbed. He said we had to go out and back where the parking lot was and look at the trees at the back edge of the property. He wouldn't tell us what we were going to look at. He just wanted to see what we thought was going on. There was a good singer wailing away on his guitar, so we said no. A friend sat down and fidgeted until the song was done and then compelled us to go outside. It was dark. There was no moon up. It was summer, but no special day. We got to the back edge where there were some trees. We all stood there quietly looking at the trees because a friend said that was where he saw it. It looked like a very dark grove of trees. Gradually, though, the scene changed. Just past the trees, you could see a meadow with a pond in it. The area was lit up as though the moon was full and high. Wisps of fog drifted about. You could hear music playing, a bit like bagpipes, but much sweeter and more enchanting. A drummer was playing, a medium quick beat, sounding a bit like an Irish bodhrán. A few minutes later, next to the pond, a circle of dancers appeared, not fully visible, but like a misty, foggy circle of dancers, dancing in long, diaphanous robes. The dancers in robes were indistinct, but had the glowing blue-white color of the full moon. They appeared taller than us and slender. We watched, gobsmacked, speechless, for maybe 5 minutes. I then started to walk down toward the dancers. Suddenly, a fear began to rise up in us. It felt like something off to the right of us in very dense woods just noticed us being able to see the dancers and was very, very pissed off about it. We turned tail and ran to the car, jumped in and hauled ass out of there. For several miles, it felt like something very tall and dark was watching from the convent grounds, looming towards us, making unclear but very dire threats as to what would happen should we come back. Now, we had only ever gone to the coffee shop after dark, so we never had really seen what the property behind the convent looked like. A few weeks later, three of us convinced each other to go have a look at the forest and pond in broad daylight. There was no pond. There was a narrow thicket of trees and then a farmer's field. There was no dense forest off to the right, where the guardian of the fairy dance had stood guard. This has been Dean Cooper, quasi-scientist, enlightening you with my quasi-theory of the week, only this time it isn't a theory. You may read the text of this on my blog at bydean.com. It's BHAIDIN.com.
Dance of the fairy god protectors. That's kind of eerie, dude. I've had a couple of experiences where I've been in the woods and I've seen what I thought was it one way and come back the next day and look at it and it's nothing like it was. I don't know how to explain that either, but it's definitely not portal related. You know, I don't know, but anyhow. Thank you so much for that, Dean. It's gotten me thinking. We'll talk about the fairies and the pixies another time. Anyhow, right about now is where we give out shout outs in the Lounge Live Hangout chat. We'll see who's hanging out with us tonight live. As usual, Cameron Young shows up first in the house. How you doing there, buddy? Glad you could join us. Wayne on MI. He's from Florida. He's checking in tonight to see what I'm going to tell him and where he's going to go watching this weekend. Thomas Thornburg, glad you could join us as well. Glad I don't recognize the name, so it might be a first timer. We like first timers. The Life and Times of JCM. That's right. Jeb and Moore, our Jesus Christ of Monterey Bay.
A first timer.
Dean Cooper, our Quasi theorist. Let's see who else is floating around out there. Obsidian Radio is joining us live tonight. Glad you could join us as well. There's more people I know there is. They just talk a whole lot. Let's slide down here just a bit. Hopefully I don't miss anybody by doing that. Hey, B. Lynn is joining us tonight. Hi. Yep, we're going to eat Pebbles. That's the way it goes. Sorry. There's no more money for Pebbles to be around, honey. Just carve her up and we'll be all good to go. Andy Tesh, how you doing there? Glad you could join us. It's like Tecumseh. So is it Andy Tech or Andy Tesh? I don't know, but it should be pretty close. Anna Baz is joining us live again tonight. Glad you could join us. Vlad Dupree in the place to be. He finally made it as well. Midnight Hailstrom. I swear this is too late for you. Aren't you supposed to be sleeping? Let's see here. Who else is floating around out there live tonight? Gin! Hey, how you doing, buddy? Glad you could join us. Yeah, I still need a vowel in there somehow. I wish you could change names. N. Phillips. Hey, glad you could join us there, dude. Or dudette. Not sure which. Usually if it's N. Phillips, it's a dude. Raymond Lopez. Hey, man, everybody loves Raymond. Glad you could join us as well. Let's see here. Should be getting down towards the bottom of all this mess. Wow, there's a lot of people out there. There's more people than what are actually commenting in the chat room. But if you'd like to say, if you'd like us to say hi to you, then you kind of got to leave a comment in the box. Otherwise, I don't really know who's out there. Imagine that. I'm getting close to the bottom, so if you haven't clicked in there and said hi yet, you better hurry up because I'm gonna miss you. I think that's actually it. Dave Jackson, he finally made it in. See, that's how it's done. Glad you could join us in the live chat tonight. Monday nights is Bigfoot Entertainment Weekly, where your old pal Wes Losner and I just get stupid and talk about all the crazy stuff. Right now, we're doing the Monster Quest series. We did the Native American one last week. This week, we're actually going to do season 1, episode 5 of Sam Squanch and the Monster Quest documentary. So that'll be fun. We dig Monster Quest. David,
that was my gateway drug, really.
That's right.
This whole thing, Monster Quest.
It absolutely was. Monster Quest was one of the better deals out there. So what are we talking about tonight? Nope, that didn't work. We're talking about the Florida Sasquatch. That's right. Skunkape, Bigfoot. A lot of people are confused and concerned and don't really get along. So I figured I've offered this information to many Bigfoot groups, from Scott Marlowe to Stacy Brown Jr. to a couple of people I can't even remember. I mean, there are Tim Fasano's down there. Never asked me a thing. I wouldn't give him a thing because he's a hoaxer anyhow. But basically,
he can watch the episode.
That's right. He can watch the episode and follow up on what the Reverend's experience was. But basically, for 15 years, I chased these things around the Ocala National Forest. In the beginning, I didn't know exactly what I was chasing, but by the end of it, I was pretty damn sure of exactly what I was dealing with. And what I found was there was basically a triangle of activity buried deep in the Ocala National Forest. At one time, Florida was green from tip to shaft. The penis of America literally was a giant forest from all the way down in the Keys to all the way to the Georgia border. Let's take a look at Dr. Batdorf here. He's going to give us an idea where we're talking about in the Ocala National Forest here. Here's Mother Earth, as you can see.
Mother Earth, big twig, little berries. Okay, so Ocala National Forest. Hey, look, there it is. Says so twice.
Big too.
Yeah,
I mean, we're not
huge.
talking about a small place. We're talking about a place that covers several hundred square miles.
My personal problem always was, where is the dense wildlife? I know that up in the Panhandle, up in these areas, and I forget what is this national park here? Let's the
Apalachicola.
Apalachicola. I know that in the Apalachicola, like, there's a bunch of sightings. Well, here, so I wasn't going to do this just because it covers up all the what we're looking at. Oh my gosh!
Yeah, there's a whole lot of Bigfoot sightings in Florida.
Some Bigfoot sightings up in here, but most of them, if you look at how many disappear, were 1960, 70, were 95. Most of these are contemporary, 2000, 2004. A lot of these are contemporary sightings, right? So if we look in these areas, the Apalachicola, like I've heard, our friend Jason Valenti, woo or no, like had his initial sighting that rocked his entire world up in the Panhandle here. But this Ocala area, now that I'm looking at it, is actually really interesting. Like there's some, it looks like cropped land. It's hard to tell, but it's hard to tell what's what's actually
part of it is actually
what's cropped for. This does not look like it's cropped for agriculture.
It is not. It is actually an old lake.
Yeah. Well,
that is not a cropped field. That's an old lake. Most of those things you are looking at as fields used to be water. All of those that are in that picture, right? All of those that you were looking at, except for that center spot that has a circle around the outside of it, the little pieces on the inside were all water. Those are all old water sources that used to be there. That's not cultivated land in any type.
So you have to remember how Google Earth chops things up and how it looks at particular areas and particular times. And also you have to remember, somebody like myself thinking about Washington, this looks a whole lot like clear cutting. There's not a huge timber industry down here.
No.
So that's not, I'm not looking like apples to apples. I would say, okay, well, this is clear cutting. This is DNR land. This is, privatized logging. That's not really what we're looking at in a lot of these areas. And even if we are, what you're looking at is deep forested areas that would be trimmed back. And that's not always a bad thing as far as we're talking about the resources, right? So
basically, from where you're at right there, stop right there. From Eustis, scroll in a little bit more. You get into Umatilla is what I'm looking for. Right there. Umatilla, Altoona, Pittman are literally the last places you can buy anything. There's a country store there at Pittman. In Altoona, there's a couple of little convenience stores and a hardware store. But outside of that, all those people go to Umatilla for what they need. Altoona is already that last chance saloon.
Umatilla, this is your major city, your last chance city.
There's probably 8,000 people there, maybe, and that includes people coming in there to work.
So the interesting thing about Florida so Jeff and I spent a little bit of time before show kind of zooming in on some areas, and I didn't realize this. I'm used to lakes, I'm used to big lakes, I'm used to mountain lakes, and this is a totally different environment than I'm used to. There's like 8 lakes here.
Right. And they're big. I mean, there's several thousand acres probably. Adding all those lakes up, there's probably 10,000 acres of lakes.
When I'm used to a lake that's 800 to 1,000 feet deep, and maybe a mile wide and 10 miles long, this is a different sort of an area. And I have to keep that in mind when I'm thinking about that. And all of our Pacific Northwest folks and our Canadian listeners and all those, you have to remember this is flat. This is all going to be underwater in 200 years
probably. Now if you look out to the west of where that line says 19, that's Highway 19, and it literally runs out to the coast at Ormond Beach. But again, once you
Daytona,
right, yes, but once you get 8 miles in from the coast, again, you lose all human contact. There are no cities along that road that run clear out through the national forest.
And that's 40, right? 40?
Right. That's 40 that runs from Ormond Beach all the way out to 19 there and continues on. If you continue along 40 out the other side, you literally don't hit anything until you hit the city of Ocala. You have this giant swath of pretty much nothingness and deep, hard pine forest. Sandy substrate, no real dirt. So there's a lot of scrub pine, there's a lot of palm fronds, there's a lot of palm trees. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't require big, deep roots, but it's still very, very thick. All along Lake George there, south all the way down to Altoona is the area we're going to be looking at. And let me go ahead and bring up my map here so I can be a little more specific about what we're looking at.
Yeah, you don't have to ask me to point out this, that, and the other.
Right. Okay. So here we are. We are taking a look at the upper half of Highway 40 and Highway 19. There seems to be a triangle of activity that runs. Basically, 19 runs right through the middle of it, and 40 is the northern border of it. And the only reason I say that is because anytime I probed further north of this, I never really got any activity whatsoever. And I tried many, many times. But Lake George is a very active lake. Fishermen, boats, cruises, people live around the lake. Lake George is a very, very active place. Cars are running up the highways, using all those roads all the time. So really, getting into Astor Park right here is another teeny tiny town. I mean, we're talking 1,000 residents maybe. And that's your last harbor of people again until you get back out to where 19 goes south through the National Forest, which is right here. So Grasshopper Lake, North and South Grasshopper Lakes, Wildcat Lake, these are all places that I've camped directly between. I'm thinking that the animals are going to be moving from one location for food to another location for food, depending on what they're doing. I have stayed in all these little mud puddles. All these little pole holes used to be filled with water. They used to be filled with really clear water. And if you look at the lakes, you can tell which ones are kind of spring fed and which ones are not. And that's where the springs really started to come into play for me. Now, here's the Department of the U.S. Navy, and a lot of this range out here is actually bombing range. So we can't even, do anything with that part. I'm pretty sure that's what this is here is the bombing range. I'm almost positive that this is the bombing range is what this actually is here. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what that is. But it's so inactively used, like 3 times a year. This is all fenced off. You can't get into it whatsoever unless you're part of the Navy because they don't want you to die. But just above that is Juniper Springs Recreation Area. Now, Juniper Springs is a very, very cool place. They have like a Greek-style pool in their boil for a spring. Literally has like the big slabs of concrete that step down as you go further and further into the spring itself. And where the spring leaks is right here behind those little trees. It's kind of difficult to see because they don't let you get down like the government ones do. But you can see that is a pure, crystal clear bowl of spring-fed water. And all of the area that I ever stayed around that particular spring, that spring runs out from a little spring house and runs along and just kind of disappears out here into nothingness. This is super, super dense stuff. This stuff is never cut. This stuff is never touched. This is actually part of the park. If you go back and watch my Kids and Bigfoot, this is actually where my son did a tree knock and actually got a response at like 2:30 in the morning from something that was back here in the Juniper Creek area. So there's a fresh spring boil here. There's Juniper Creek that runs out of it, and there's all this dense forest that runs behind there. Can you get in there? On foot. Most of this, if you can see, are unimproved forest roads. So you can use them. You can take a 4x4 and actually get into them, but they don't allow you to just kind of go off-road and just blaze a trail through the woods. However, if there's 2 tire marks that go through the woods, they consider that a road and you can use it.
So fair enough.
Keep that in mind. So Juniper Springs, and like I said, as you can say, a lot of this stuff has never, ever been touched. Period. It's been there forever. So the animals are probably still there as well. And you can look at a lot of the denseness to a lot of the stuff. It's actually never been touched as well. Coming along Route 40 here, we get into Half Moon Lake. That's right, Half Moon Lake. Now, as you can tell, Half Moon Lake used to be a considerably larger lake than it is now. However, if you look at the access to where the boat ramp is, which is where this little straight road that comes down here, there is the boat ramp access to it right here as well. Up here in these rows of trees is unofficial camping area, if you'd like. Now, it's been 10 years since I've been in Florida doing any of this. So, but we're looking at active satellite pictures. So we know that, these are last year? No, it's 2016. So these are actually still intact. I actually had several whale calls. Not like the mammal whale in the ocean, but wailing Sasquatch calls hit to me from the south of this location while I was camping up here with a couple of friends. We actually we walked it through the dark the best we could, but as you can see again, look at how thick these areas are. I mean, this is not cut down and easy to get through types of areas anymore. Very, very dense. And the distance from the Half Moon campsite here back out to this forest road, that's probably 3 miles as the crow flies. They'll walk straight through there.
You have to remember, there is a road there, but that is not
that's a dirt road. There might be 8 people a month use that road.
Yeah,
maybe. And 7 of those are the damn forest guys.
Yeah. So I would put that into perspective, and like how well is this traveled? How well can you get from one area to another?
A lot of people use State Road 40. 40 is a highway that probably sees 1,000 cars a day. South of that, nothing. All these dirt roads you see crisscrossing in here, nothing uses these on a regular basis. Zero. Nothing. I mean, they're unimproved dirt roads, so the state doesn't even go down with a blade or anything to clean them up. I mean, some of them are improved. The bigger ones are improved roads, but most of these little tiny ones that are off the side, nobody goes down those things friggin' ever. So if we're looking at Half Moon Lake, let's go ahead and go down here south a little bit, and we'll pick up on Big Bass Lake. Now, Big Bass Lake is kind of a conundrum for me. I never expected anything to be there. We went there because there was a campground there. And we were actually going to stay at the campground with some facilities for a change instead of shitting in a bucket out in the middle of nowhere. Okay, so there is Big Bass Lake. And it is, like I said, there's Altoona, your kind of last chance saloon. And as you can see, the population is kind of south of 15. There really isn't anything north of 15 whatsoever. So maybe this is the edge of their roaming territory. But again, as we zoom in here to Big Bass Campground, you can see that this used to be Big Bass Lake. I know this for a fact that this used to be Big Bass Lake because I fished this lake many, many times. As you go into a place like this with Big Bass, I'm sorry, Big Bass Lake is over here. my map is turned. Here's Big Bass Campground. Let's get in here a little bit. And you can see that it's a half the year campground. It's locked up from October to like March. So there's nobody in there whatsoever. Big Bass Lake used to be a lot more full than it is now. All of this area behind Big Bass Lake used to be open to the public with all these little roads that go around here. And there used to be a bunch of dirt bikers that run through here, but they've got everything piled off and piled up now so that you can't do any of that because they were doing too much environmental damage to it. However, back in the day when we could go up this little logging road, and if they won't let me go in any closer, a little bit, you can see that you can pull right off of some of these side roads and get right up in here and park.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite places to actually camp is actually still there. This is where I had the tree shaker.
Ooh.
And if you remember me telling you that it was kind of a halved out circle so that I was protected by palm fronds and trees and everything else, so nothing could kind of approach me from the south or from the back of me, that is the campsite that I use for the tree shaker event. Basically, something was here at the lake when I got there. I don't know what. Nobody else was there. I was there by myself. I set up my tent. I set up a bunch of other stuff. I'm just sitting around, and there's just these weird friggin' sounds coming from down by the lake. Now, at the time that I was there was water clear up to the edges here. I mean, the water was, I was just out of mosquito range of the lake, being in that spot. The lake itself was much fuller. Something was down splashing around in the lake when I got there. I didn't pay any attention to it. And as the day got on, whatever it was got closer and closer to my campsite. It sounded like a person coming up closer and closer and watching is what it sounded like. And then I heard I was like, I had a person. I kind of got the creeps at that point. I really did. And not a couple of minutes later, arched into the campsite was a big old pine cone. And then fall out of the tree. Something threw that pine cone into the tree, then into the camp. So I picked it up and knocked the side off of one of the pieces of the side of the pine cone, and whipped it back in the direction that it came from, and I heard. I just kind of freaked me out. I was like, okay, so there's a Sasquatch here. Now what do I do? As the evening went on, I just kind of kept terrorizing the thing, like, come on in here. Let's find out what you look like. Well, finally, about dark, this thing kind of was sick and tired of me provoking it, and it grabbed a hold of a set of palm fronds that was right at the very back edge of this campsite, put one hand on the top of one hand on top of the other one, and shook them like they were nothing. They had to weigh 300 pounds apiece, and just and I grabbed my rifle and kind of went back to the fire that was directly in the middle of this pit and just kind of sat there till dawn. Not another set, not another word, not nothing. I'm just sitting there praying, don't make me kill you. Whatever you are, please go away. I don't want to have to kill this thing, whatever it was. I didn't want to. And literally, I never heard it leave. I never heard it run around. Nothing. It just was gone. Daylight came, and behind my camp was so tore up. All the palm fronds on the backside of it were ripped out. It was as something had just been standing back in there pulling things out of the ground because it was just so pissed off. So I'm glad it shook the palm fronds instead of coming in and shaking me. So that's right at the edge of Big Bass Lake. Okay. Sorry. I got a little into that one. I know.
Every time.
Right. Well, if you look where Big Bass Lake is and we scroll out here, there's the bombing range and there's Lake George. We know that this is Half Moon Lake over here. Well, if you go back up to 40 and come back down to where it meets 19, like I said, that seems to be the big indicator of it. Wildcat Lake has had so many Bigfoot reports come from it. If you put that BFR overlay over it, you can actually see it's surrounded. Like literally, there isn't a side of Wildcat Lake that hasn't had a Bigfoot sighting on it. Well, over here is Grasshopper Lake, and there's a Bigfoot campfire story about a guy that I actually got from Grasshopper Lake. And you've got North and South Grasshopper Lake over here. I wish it would give me my labels, but apparently it's not going to. Between Grasshopper Lake and Wildcat Lake, again, you can get in on these side roads. You can drive right in off of 19. If you come over here and look, 19 has a little dirt set of roads that will run you right into Grasshopper Lake. They're not all that great, but they'll actually get you in there. And, here's the main one here, the hook slide. That's an ugly friggin' road. You definitely want to have a 4x4 from there. But there is a set of houses out here on Grasshopper Lake. And I freaked out about it because I never knew they were there. Okay, so I'm down here, like staying in this little less dense friggin' area between the lakes itself, right? And I keep hearing a radio playing, like somebody singing. And I'm like, what? And I had, of course, come from the other direction, the way I come in off of this road over here. So I basically parked my truck here. I drug all my crap into this little section here, and there was music and singing. I'm like, what the hell is that noise? So I went out for a walk, and of course, here I find a set of houses right in the middle of where there shouldn't be anything. But there's like 20 people there. Not enough to chase away Bigfoot that might be in the area. I had several vocals here. I found a trackway in this same location, but again, the substrate of the ground just was never ever conducive to leaving detailed prints. It was always just an impression in the ground that was way too big to be a person. So when you take all this information in and you look at the BFR overlays, you can understand I'm not the only one that ever had a Sam's Clench encounter in this area of Central Florida. I mean, it's literally just completely covered with them. But what seemed to always be the trick, this area here, it's Grasshopper Lake, nearly never went a weekend without something that made me think the animals were around. And pretty much the same thing over at Half Moon Lake. But there were lots, and I mean lots, and I mean lots and lots of weekends where there wasn't shit going on. I mean, I went out there and had a good time and camped and ate food and would go into town and talk to people and find other camp. I literally spent summers driving all of these unimproved roads to the point that I knew them. It's like, oh, this road takes me over here. You know, hey, there is a hippie commune. They've basically pulled all these caravans up to the middle of the forest. And it is literally like right here by the bombing range. If you go into this, they are so dense in the trees, I doubt you'll be able to see them. But there is a road that runs right off of this split where these two roads come together. There it is. Literally right over in this area here somewhere, there's a hippie commune. That there's like 20 caravans and the rainbow people living in there, and they've been in there for 20 years. You know, are they growing pot? Probably. I don't care. But look at how dense that is. You know, I went in there and sat for a whole afternoon and talked to those people about Bigfoot. All they could say was their food would disappear if they leave it outside, and they weren't too sure that it was bears. Who's going into a hippie commune to steal food from them?
Well, maybe because it's funny or what?
Right. Okay. Yeah. So now we're back over to David here. Let's take a look at your BFO or overlay here, if you would.
So the areas that Jeff is talking about in these intersections between 19 and 40 are right through, like, if this is the triangle he's talking about here, this is, you know, historically a pretty good area and pretty good contemporary area. When I go up to the areas that I'm looking at, if I find anything after like 1985, I'm excited. These are all, you know, 2015, 2012, 2004. There's some really good contemporary instances here, and you know, you click on all these. Let's click on one of the ones that's closer by. You know, this tall upright animal, like coolers ransacked. Large tracks found, investigators by federal authorities. You know, I love that.
Right, which federal authorities? That's the Fish and Game guys.
Yeah, Fish and Game guys. They cast them and shared them with the Bigfooters. Man finds cast large footprints and look out, get out of there. We're talking about Bigfoot. Stalking in swamp during a Florida BFRO expedition. Interesting, but. Stranded motorist has a daytime close encounter with an adult and juvenile near Lake Mac. You see, I love the adult and juvenile encounter
because it's a natural thing. It's something that should happen and should actually happen more often.
You have, if you're gonna make something up, like I saw Bigfoot, and you're not okay. So if somebody was gonna hoax Bigfoot and they wanted to be like, and they were from the Bigfoot community, they might do something like that. They might make it a female. They might, you know, but just outright, it's like the Patterson Gimlin film. Why would you make that just a female just because? Or why would you add a juvenile just because? So that those are interesting, if not credible, eyewitnesses always to me, when you see a young there, because they have to procreate. There, you know, there's no way to sustain quote unquote Bigfoot unless you have baby Bigfoot. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as you can tell also, if you look at the lakes in the areas, the ones obviously that are full are either river fed or spring fed. Otherwise, they would be half empty like everything else around it. So again, when you look at these Bigfoot sightings that are out there, check and see the nearest full lake, it's probably a spring fed lake. That would be where I would start to look rather than the odd sighting that's 5 miles from it.
So the interesting thing to me, like, you know, when I'm thinking of topography, I'm thinking of like, you know, 800 to 10,000 feet, right? where are these lookouts?
That lookout is probably 300 foot tall in land that's 10
we
feet
probably
above.
actually click on that and find out.
It's not very big.
No data. Damn it.
Yeah, they're like I said, they're probably 30 stories up there, but there's the land is 10 feet above sea level. So, how tall do you really need to be above 10 feet above sea level with no mountains in your way?
My grandfather was a plumber, and all he needed to know was fittings tight, 90s right, shit runs downhill.
That's right. How much pitch does your gravy way have?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. As long as it's going downhill, that's the way it goes.
Right. That's why they ask the pitch, because if it's 0, you're screwed. But I mean, seriously, don't take any environment for granted. Get out there and look. If this is what you have to deal with is Florida friggin' swamp, well, guess what? Chances are, if it's an uninhabited area by many people, then cryptid animals very well could still be there as well.
The interesting thing, and why, Jeff and I have had lots of backside conversations on this. This is an interesting area for 2 reasons. One, because it's totally foreign to me. That's interesting to me. But 2, it really shows you that the spring water is going to be the clear water. Where the still murky water is going to be the runoff, because there's not a lot of topography. You're not, shooting this shit downhill at a 10-degree pitch, right? So the spring water is going to be more important than the runoff collection sites based on stagnation and there's a algal bloom in Florida that you can see from space right now, right?
Yeah, but that's out in the ocean.
No, the inland lake.
Okeechobee?
Yeah, some Okeechobee. Yeah, so an algal bloom that you can see from space right now, versus a spring-fed filtered water, like artesian water. Everybody, that wants to say artisan water. No, artisan bread.
Right, artesian water.
Yeah, artesian water. That means upwelling. It means
fine Corinthian leather.
There's a hydrostatic pressure that forces the water up. Right, there's too much water down below and it has to come out the top, but that filters it through sand and rock and all those other areas, and there's an upwelling, and that is important because it gives you clean drinking water and not stagnated toxic water. And animals have to know the difference or they don't survive. Right. Am I right?
You're right. Am I right?
Yeah.
Right.
So that's important. And if you smell the water and it smells like poop or it smells like algae, I don't care what kind of filtration system you have, don't pump that out. If you smell the water and it smells like nothing, there you go.
That's right. Chances are it's probably good to drink.
Your sniffer is there designed to keep you away from the things that kill you, not the things that don't. So there's other things in that water, like all the bacteria and the protozoa that might infect you. Yeah, filter that. But the things that will kill you that you can smell, like fecal coliform and red tide, yeah, you can smell that. Don't drink the water.
Probably bad for you. A couple of other lakes that I will mention: Buck Lake and Doe Lake are also big places that people camp a lot, and they've also have the rare Bigfoot encounter as well. So go in and talk to the campers that are in these places, because most of these people are locals. The locals use the crap out of these resource areas because literally that's the only place they got to go where the sharks aren't going to eat them. Most of the time, alligators won't bother you until after dark. So you could really literally go swim in these lakes and stuff and really not have too much to worry about until the sun goes down. You go out in the ocean, sharks will eat your ass. That's why your hotel has a pool.
The infinity pool is to keep you safe.
Exactly. The pool equals no sharks. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for the Reverend Jeff Reveals All. But I hope you Florida people actually paid attention to where that triangle is. And I would say anywhere in that triangle is definitely open game to the Bigfoot. How far can a Sasquatch walk that has an 8-foot gait? a long effing way. He could probably cover that whole triangle in one day. There's more than one animal there. There's got to be several pods of animals living there, just like we expect anywhere else. There are probably relic populations that eventually are going to be in a real problem, but because that's a national forested area, no one's ever going to take it from them. Any thoughts there, David?
My thoughts are, with if you're going to go out there, you're going to do the good thing. Look at the springs versus the collection pools. The collection pools are going to be those closer to at sea level areas, the low-lying levels, those pools that are above that. Buy your simplest topo map of the area and look at the 20, 30, 50 feet higher is a big deal in that area. You
can actually get a topo map right there at the Fish and Game office on the way. The ranger office right on your way into the area. They have them right there.
Yeah.
$8.
Stop in the area, get a topo map, look at the higher level collection sites, and that's probably going to be your springs.
I have a feeling, if I remember right, that triangle is the high area in that particular location. That whole triangle from Big Bass Lake being the low to areas like Half Moon and Juniper Springs being the upper high. I'm pretty sure that's what you'll find out if you.
My immediate interest, and this is just like me waxing on air right now, is that those 3 lookout towers kind of block out that triangular area you were talking about, and the lookout towers are going to be on the high ground. So if it is a runoff area and it is a high area, that's still a good resource because it's like the first catch, not the stagnant bottom catch of the water. And that's important for all biota, but especially, like, we know primates have to drink. We don't go very long without water or beer. So that's my final thought.
3 days without beer, you die. That's how that works.
Indeed.
Well, that's going to actually do it for this edition of the Squatchers Lounge podcast. We want to thank everybody for tuning in and checking us out tonight. Monday night, we'll be back with Bigfoot Entertainment Weekly. If you haven't seen the latest Bigfoot campfire stories, well, then you're just missing out, because this is a fantastic one that people just can't stop talking about. So check it out on the channel as well. It's under playlists. Bigfoot Campfire Stories Season 2. See you Monday night at 8 p.m. with your old pal Wes. Thanks for watching, and may the Squatch be with you.
Bigfoot Entertainment Weekly should be Bew.
Pew, pew.
You can't say the SLP.
The slop.
Slop.
That's right.
That's what we do.
The single ladies of Point Place.
Sloppy seconds.
I call sloppy seconds. Nobody wants sloppy. Nobody. Woohoo! I don't even know where I found this picture.
Yeah. What is that Bigfoot carrying? Is that a
Fishing.
tuna?
He's fishing.
Yeah, but what kind of fish is it? I need specifics.
I know you can't tune a piano and you can't tune a guitar, but can you tune a fish?